What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Huge, and use the word hubris. I mean, I was thinking about this as, God forbid, what if I asked somebody else's opinion to do something,
yes,
and they do it better than I could have done it?
Yeah.
I mean, and so from a value standpoint, there's a value shift that has to take place as a leader, right? It's like, I can't be doing, I can't be saying, but if I shift the value to where, how are our people growing and developing? Are they better today than were last? If that's where my value system is, I've now increased my value to the organization that I'm leading, whether it be a department, a team, or a company. And
that will not only propel your success, which is a reasonable thing for everybody to care about. That'll propel your success as a leader, but it will also create a legacy of people that you helped go to another level. And, you know, it may be hard to appreciate, but since there's two guys our age on this conversation today, let's say something we would want everybody to catch, I think, is, you know, one day, years from now, you're going to cross the path of those people. You're going to be in a restaurant. You're going to be at the shopping mall. You're going to be at a ball game, and you're going to cross paths. And they're going to come up to you and say, "Hey, Mike, you may not remember me, but I worked for you. I worked for you 10 years ago." And then whatever they're going to say next should be your greatest aspiration as a leader. Because if they say, you know, you really helped me, even when you challenged me, you helped me, and I grew under your leadership, and I went on to have a great career in part because of the things I learned from you, and I just want to say thank you. When you have that moment, everything you did is going to be worth it. You're going to be happy about everything you did to have that moment. And if you have the other kind of moment, which is, you don't remember me, but I used to work for you, but implicitly is, and I'm glad I don't now, you're going to have a different kind of moment. But it's going to come later in your life when you can't necessarily just change everything. And now you've built a bank of regret, a bank of regret for who you could have been and the impact you could have made. So why not light up today? You know, why not when you finish this podcast, say, you know what, I'm starting today. I'm going to value the people who work for me. I'm going to appreciate their contribution. I'm going to recognize their skill, particularly when it exceeds mine. And I'm not ever going to take the credit for an accomplishment that rightly belongs to all those people. Just start with a simple playbook like that, and you'll see the results. Is it fair, Mike, to say within hours, maybe within days, you'll see the results of that shift in leadership?
Yeah, you'll see it. And what we're talking about is I'm going to go high tech. I'm not going to change screens here. So I'm going to use I call it my Cajun PowerPoint projector. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And it's a T square, and it says business. Okay. And it says human. And what happens is that as leaders, we have a tendency to focus over here on the business side of things, the engineering part of it. But they also have to have the human side of it. That's what we're talking about. This isn't soft skill. This is right. Now, what happens is we can't stay and just run our business based upon, do our people feel good? That's not what this is about. It's the ability to recognize and be able to navigate both sides and be able to move along both sides of it. Because an effective leader can't stay on the business side and just throw everything on the human side of it. We can't stay on the human side and ignore business. So one of the clients I work with and I love talking about, it's a cynical organization. They do drug and alcohol abuse. I met with the CHRO yesterday for lunch, and they have an awesome story of going from 8 people that were incarcerated in Colorado, said, I want a different life and we need help. And people came around and went from those 8 people, over 300,000 people's lives have now been changed over the last 50 years. Well, Bill Bailey runs the Center. He's the CEO of the organization, and the culture that they have in their organization is they make their decisions 51% based upon business. That's the business side of it, and 49% based upon the human or the people side of it. Beautiful. And because of that, because they have to have enough money in the bank to be able to pay for the services. Without that, and that's the reason they've grown so well, where a lot of others have struggled. That is what I'm hearing you say is the message. This is not a feel good, let's hold hands, sing kumbaya, touch and feel it. It's really connecting with the person, with where they are, finding a way to create a sense of value, right? With what they're doing.
That's right. It's so well said, Mike. And I don't know if anybody will take offense at this, but I just think the worst phrase ever introduced into the business vocabulary was soft skills.
Yes.
I think that's the worst phrase, right? Because if you think those skills are soft, you aren't doing them. If you want to have a courageous, open-hearted conversation with a person on your team over a difficult issue, you think that's a soft skill? I don't know what version of it you're living, but it's not. It takes courage to do that. And it takes skill to do it well. And it takes practice and preparation and a degree of willingness to, wade into something that is probably going to be a challenging encounter. It takes all that. There's nothing soft about it. And even when it comes to, for example, I think you were commenting with me earlier, but I wrote a post last week about the difference between praise and recognition. Comes clearly evident in that. Praise says you did something worth recognizing. Praise says you did something valuable. Recognition says you are valuable. Two different messages, right? Now, if you don't understand the difference between those, that's pause. We need to talk a little more. We need to get your heart in the place where you get the difference between those. And there's nothing wrong with either one of them. But let's remember that praise is a level 1 reward and recognition is a level 10 reward. And they both cost you nothing. I keep talking like a CEO with my whole ROI example, but everything's like that with me. What's the least cost, least effort, biggest reward? Let me try some of that. Well, recognition is just like that. It's one of those same kinds of things. Recognizes the value of the individual separate from their performance. They're both important. Let's talk about both, and there are requirements for both. But let's make sure the person knows they're valued and respected, irrespective of whether they hit their quota this month or not. Those are two separate. I mean, don't let anybody think that it's not important. Hitting your quota is important, but the two things are separate. And what we do is we conflate them, and then we get all tangled up in this conversation when it could have been so simple.
Yeah, I think also when you talk about praise, where I see people dropping the ball is they go, "Jim, you did a great job."
Yeah, bam.
Okay, then I'm out the door. All right.
Yeah.
And what they've lost is, Jim, you did a great job. When you did this for that client in this way, this is the impact it had on the client or organization. I appreciate you.
And I can imagine some of the high pressured executives like you and I have been in our lives hearing this message say, yeah, great. Thanks, guys. When have I got time to do that? Well, how much time did that just take? What was that? 17 seconds? Was that? You don't have 17 seconds. You're going to talk about college football for 20 minutes tomorrow. Well, we're recording this in the fall of the year. So, but in other words, it's an illusion that you don't have the time.
Yeah. Matter of fact,
effective leader.
Yeah, when the illusion comes into play is if you don't, how much time is it going to take for you to deal with the lack of productivity or the problem that comes in or the breakdown in communication or the person? It's not an investment of time. It literally is, I think, the role of the leader is to communicate. And that's what feedback is. It's just communication. It's not giving somebody a ribbon for being on the soccer team and just showing up for the game. That's not what we're talking about here. It's truly giving feedback and communicating with somebody about, it's what I talk about a lot is the difference between training and development. Training is, here, do. Let me kind of teach you to do. Development is, let me help you learn to grow to think. Right. And when I step into that space, when I'm willing to invest time in that, I've now replicated myself. I've made that person going from being an average performer to hopefully, increasing their productivity.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me tagging on, because I can't say that any better than you did, but tag on to the end of it that then what happens in the end, you also get past your very human fear that the person who is working for you is actually better than you. You get past that fear. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's a thing to celebrate. Every time a person, demonstrates that they're probably more capable than me of doing a certain thing. It challenges me to be more capable to do another thing that's in alignment with the gifts I have. It's not a threat. We're not, there's not a small pie and we only get a certain slice, and when it's gone, it's gone. We live in an abundant world where there's a lot of opportunity. But if I'm threatened by my people's progress, they're going to sense that. And they're going to sense that you see them as a threat. And then they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to dim their light so that they aren't in conflict with you, or they're going to go find a boss who celebrates their capabilities and their gifts. And of course, 2020, 21, 22, we saw a whole lot of that.
Yeah, you talk about the Great Resignation. I thought it was the worst label we could have put on it, because it created a false image. I spent over 25 years in executive search. My job was to help facilitate movement. And what I saw happening was, it wasn't where people quit their job and went to California, moved up in the mountains, and started doing yoga. What happened was I call it the Great Reset. What happened was people said, I'm not pleased with the company I work for whatever reason. They didn't handle COVID well. 60 some odd percent of the people polled said the company they work for, the leaders didn't handle COVID well. Sure. And that caused the shift to take place. Their job, it's an okay job. What COVID did was that, I'm stopping and thinking about this. I'm not going to do any workarounds anymore. Yes. They started looking at their boss going, not the boss I want.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got those things that are taking place that cause this shift that's going on. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to literally engage people so that they bring their best. And I love this story. I've shared it on other podcasts, but it fits so well with this. I'm sure you've heard of B.B. King, the great guitarist or whatever. Well, I was blessed. A friend of mine is a sideman. He plays saxophone for, people like Santana and it's amazing. Well, he put a group of guys together. They were all, people who played for B.B. King and Aretha Franklin and Jimi Hendrix. Wow. And I got a chance to meet James Boogaloo Bolton, who was the road manager for B.B. King and the trumpeter. And we were talking about the subject of A players. I said, you have everybody on that stage are world class. Yeah. What's it like being in that? And he goes, well, let me tell you about A players. He said, what happened was everybody was great, but sometimes they didn't bring their best game. And what we did is we ran them off. And the reason why is because if you don't bring your best game, your A game, I have to work harder to get mine out. But if you bring your best, it's easier for me to do mine. Right. And that's why what you're talking about from a leader's perspective, if we can create an environment where people really want to be committed to to the cause and their role and involvement, their A game comes up, which means everybody's A game has a chance to move forward.
I like that a lot. And I take in what you said, which I thought you said wonderfully, is we're not saying everybody's A level is equivalent to everybody else's, because we're all gifted in different ways. We're all wired. We all have our own personal human capacities. But we are saying whatever the best you have to offer is, strive for that. Get to that level. Consistently bring the best version of yourself, and then you'll grow and develop. And a year from now, there'll be another best version of yourself. But it doesn't matter if the person sitting next to you is far more talented than you, or it hits a higher sales number every week, whatever it might be. You can't control that. You can't do anything about that. So what great leaders do is they get each person to rise to the highest level of their own ability, and then I think be willing to learn and grow so that over time that bar goes up and up and up, all relative to what they're capable of doing.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, what we've been talking about, is that making sure a person feels valued in their role. I have to find ways to communicate that to them. And bring clarity so they understand their role. And if there's something that's misfiring, I've got to be able to listen more effectively, not just better, but more effectively as we connect. If we're going to take one final shot at this subject, what point have we not made that we need to make?
Well, I think we've kind of done a master class on a lot of things already, but there's one word we haven't used, and I think it's been in the recipe of everything we've talked about, but let's call it out, which is that sense of purpose. I'm now an executive coach, Mike. So after all my years of being a CEO and then being a global managing consultant for FranklinCovey, the last couple of years, I've pivoted my life in a wonderful way for me to be able to work one-on-one. My whole life was about working one to many, whether it was with a team or on a consulting engagement with a large organization. And this is the first time in my life, really, I've gotten to build a business around one-to-one relationships. And it's literally incredible. It's incredible, the intimacy and the impact you can have and you can see. But of all the things we do in one-to-one coaching, to me, the most pivotal has been when an individual pauses long enough to simply answer the question, why am I here? What did I come here to do? And I'm careful. Remember, I'm an old CEO. I'm not trying to be existential on everybody listening to you and me today. We have that conversation another day. That's fine. But this is not that kind of point. I'm trying to be pragmatic, that if you spend enough time pondering, maybe even prayerfully pondering, what is your sense of purpose? What makes you feel fulfilled when you do it? What is the thing that you lose all sense of time while you're doing? And even though you did it for a lot of hours on a given day, you finish the day with more energy than you started because it gave you something back. What is that thing? And why does it do that for you? To explore those deeper questions is maybe a wonderful place for you and I as we come to a close, is that definition of what is my purpose? What is my impact? Steve Jobs, once said, live your life in such a way that you make a dent in the universe. And I love that image because I picture myself one day, looking at some portrayal of my life and saying, you see that dent right there? That I made that one right there. I made that one, But if we circle all the way back to the person you see at the ball game or the restaurant who says, Mike, thank you. You made a difference in my life. That's a dent. And there's going to come a day when you're going to ask yourself, have I made very many dents? In other words, have I done things that will outlast me? Not what did I achieve, not what did I earn, not how famous was I, whatever it might be, but did I do things that will live on after I'm gone? That's what you'll ask yourself when you get to be my age anyway. Those questions start to become preeminent. Well, every time you make a difference in the life of a person, every time you strengthen their sense of their own capability, every time you help them get some clarity around what is the most fundamental driving force in their life and what takes them forward, every time you teach them a new skill, every time you expand their mind, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Every time you do one of those things, you are making an impact that will outlast your human life.
Yeah.
And the key is to realize that's what it is every day. When, yes, you're busy. Yes, you got things to do. Yes, you're late for the plane. Yes, all that's true. Life is life. But along the way, don't get so busy that you forget you're also here to make a difference. And watch for those moments and seize them. Because let me tell you, there comes a day when you don't even remember. I don't even remember those numbers you talked about best place to work and all that. That is so far back in my memory that I don't think about that. And you know what I do think about is I had a coaching call yesterday with a 26-year-old marketing person who was really struggling, and I really was able to help her. And that is going to live for the next 40 years. She's going to tell that story. I was on a call with Jim Huling. I had this terrible problem. I was ready to quit, and he helped me see it a different way. See, that lives forever, right? So yes, your numbers are important. Yes, hit your quota. Yes, hit all your goals. Yes, do all of it. But don't forget that the main job of a leader is to make a difference in the minds and the hearts of the people they lead. And the ultimate measurement of your success is, did the people who followed you grow and evolve? Did they get better under your leadership?
Yeah,
if the answer is yes, you'll live forever on that. You'll live forever in their hearts and in their minds. And if the answer is no, then today's the day to get started. That's why you listen to this podcast. It wasn't an accident. Mike Lejeune cranks up the camera and he's got a message for you today about unconditional confidence. Let's go forward, making a difference. We start today to do that. I think it's that simple. It's difficult. It's not easy, but it's that simple to do.
Yeah, but let's wrap it with this, because I want to take the word leadership. I want to define the word leader in my mind, what you're talking about, Jim, because anybody listening to this, anybody watching this is a leader. And what I mean by that is it's not a title that gives you that role. right? Because what a leader is an influencer. If somebody can't influence, they're not going to be put into a leader's role. But it's not the number of people that report to you that cause you to be an influencer. You influence every day that you walk into an office. You influence every day you walk into your home. I think it's an important thing for us to look at. And I love this because I've always heard about your life is measured by the dash, right?
Yes.
Day you were born, day you died. It's the dash. I always remember there's a poem we've written about this, the dash. Well, you've now, Jim, given us a gift. And the gift is this, is that the dash is important, but the way the dash has meaning is based upon the dents that you create in the lives of those people that are put in your path, that you have maybe just a second to be an influence, to make their step a little bit clearer, better, affirmed, heard, responded to, taken care of, grown, or what have you. So I want to thank you for giving so much of your mind and your heart on this subject. I enjoyed it. I had high expectations. I enjoyed it more than I even started. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh gosh, it's been an honor, Mike, and perhaps our paths will cross again. I'd love to come back one day and see where we are, a few months or a year from now, on how our thinking has evolved. But for today, it's been a great honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Super. So look for Jim on LinkedIn. You can find him that way. Check the show notes. We'll have his contact information there. So again, Jim, have a great day, and thanks so much for giving so much of yourself.
Thank you, Mike.
As we like to say, that's a wrap.
Yeah, in show business. Awesome, brother.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.